Hi, everybody. Thank you for pressing play. This is a little bit of an experiment. We've never disseminated information to our families via PowerPoint presentation before, so we're going to give it a go. Usually, this is a live Zoom meeting. It's a little bit more interactive, and I answer questions in real time, but I know family schedules are pretty busy, so I thought using the format where you can watch the presentation when it best suits you and take in the information would maybe benefit you. I think I know everybody at this age group, but my name is Murray Finlay. I'm the Executive Director of the club, and this presentation is mainly or exclusively for our 2011 age group, primarily for those players currently in 8th grade going into freshman, but there will be some information pertinent to our current 7th graders going into 8th grade. Just want to show you just an overview of our U15 to U19 programme. The format, the structure changes slightly as we try to accommodate those athletes who are doing multiple sports, a high school sport, which is, it's important in this community. It's very time consuming, as well as accommodating those athletes who want to play soccer exclusively, and that's great too, whether they want to play in high school or beyond. So it's just accommodating all those athletes who use soccer in different ways and how we structure the programme to do that. Now, just a quick reminder, if you plan to play next year, please register for tryouts, whether you've played with us for 1 year or 10 years. Please register as early as possible, and that gives me a chance just to map everything out to better answer your questions ahead of tryouts as to how the structure of the teams will look like next year. I greatly appreciate it. Now, usually this meeting is done in conjunction with Coach Freed, who is the OPRF boys soccer coach, varsity coach, but we had that standalone meeting a month, 6 weeks ago with Coach Freed and Coach Salas, which hopefully answered all your questions about playing in high school. This meeting is this presentation, is just going to be about our Chicago Edge U15 to U19 high school program. We'll go over season dates, team composition, expectations, programs for next year, and playing in college and how we can facilitate that if your young player may have the inclination to do that. So firstly, here are the dates of club soccer and high school soccer for those players currently in 8th grade going in to be a freshman. I usually get a handful of emails just asking, well, how can you do club soccer and high school soccer as well? Basic answer is that they don't conflict. They're offset, so you can do both. So for example, the girls will play club in fall. They'll begin this fall in August 4th because they'll go back into high school the week later. So August 4th to 7th is our pre-season high school camp, and it'll run all the way for fall and spring until February 14th, which is the Friday of President's Day weekend. They may have some games, or likely will have some games after that date, because on March 1st they will go to high school, and usually high school girls tryouts are the first week in March. So they'll play games right up until that March 1st date, but practices usually end a week or two prior to the tryouts beginning. The boys, they'll be in their high school season, whether it's with the OPRF, Ignatius, Fenwick, for fall. And then their high school season will likely, depending on how deep they go, into playoffs for the varsity group, end mid-October, around about that time. And we pick them up on November 3rd, straight into the winter season. So they go straight into their winter training schedule indoors, and they go through winter and spring. So they'll finish early June with us when the spring season finishes. Now, one of the main questions we get at this meeting traditionally is, how do you balance specific sports with playing club soccer? Because one of our unique selling points, I guess, as a club is we try to accommodate those athletes who want to play multiple sports at high school. They may play another sport, whether it's volleyball on the girls' side, which is quite popular, lacrosse on the boys, track on the boys, baseball, whatever it may be. Some sports are easier to balance than others, quite frankly. So these are the IHSA sports, the high school sports, and what seasons they run. So for example, fall is boys soccer, as I've already mentioned, but that doesn't conflict with our season because they pick it up in November. In winter, those players from the boys' side who are doing wrestling or basketball, perhaps indoor track and field, they may have some conflicts. In spring, it's the girls' soccer season, as we said, lacrosse, baseball, track and field, and boys' volleyball. So the biggest conflicts, I suppose, we've had in the past is girls' volleyball, and club soccer can be quite difficult to balance. Girls' hockey In club soccer, it can be quite difficult to balance. And on the boys' side, it's traditionally been lacrosse because it's quite physically demanding and conflicts with the same season as club soccer. All these are manageable. In fact, we have lots of players who do both. They just mean a little more attention to detail in terms of your schedule and communication with your coach about just where you are in terms of physical tiredness, to avoid any injuries, just making sure we don't overload players when they're doing a high school sport, and we're aware of their schedule in high school, just so we're avoiding injuries and that kind of thing. So their well-being is important when they're doing multiple sports because they're so busy and they're all over the place in terms of their schedule. So it's important the communication is on point. Now, this is the current composition of our U15 to U19 program. We've got 10 teams, 6 boys and 4 girls. It's probably one of the biggest high school programs of any club, a community club in Chicagoland. Approximately 140 players. I think it's a little bit more than that. And I know I mentioned OPRF a few times, but it's just because of the location we're in and the size of the school that probably around 75-80% of our players go to OPRF. But we do have players from lots of different high schools that we're very proud of representing. So Fenwick, Ignatius, Elmwood Park, Walter Payton, Leiden, Morton. We've had players from all over, and I'm probably missing a couple there. So we don't necessarily, we don't promote one high school over the other. We tend to stay neutral, but we just understand that sheer weight of numbers in our location that we have. We make sure our relationship with OPRF is very strong since we're dealing with the same players largely. So this is the current makeup of our high school program and what teams we have at what age groups. On the boys' side, we have a 2010 Premier 11, 2010 Select, 2009 Select, 2008 Select, and an 06-08 Premier 11, which is basically a pool format, which is essentially 2 teams. We also have a 2010 8th grade standalone team, which I'm sure many of your sons are on. So we have a very large 2010 age group. We're in the luxurious position of having 3 strong teams at that age group. So we have a lot of players on the boys' side. On the girls' side, we have a 2010 Premier, 2009 Premier, and an 06-07 again on a pool format, which is essentially 2 teams. We have quite a lot of graduating seniors, so this composition will change. On the girls' side, what we plan to do is keep the 2011 age group largely intact as it is just now. So whether your player's going into freshman or 8th grade, what we're likely to do is have our 2011 players all incorporated into our high school program for fall and winter. And next spring, it's likely our 2011 8th grade players will integrate into our 2012 age group so they can play year round. On the boys' side, that's certainly an option too. So in fall, we will have a 2011 8th grade standalone team, or they will be incorporated in our 2012 age group. It's likely, knowing the numbers, because we have a lot of players, that there may be a 2011 standalone 8th grade team for fall, and then they'll be integrated into our high school program 2011 age group again for winter and spring. Or if it's a strong 2011 8th grade team, we could keep them intact for the year round. I just need to look at the numbers closer to tryouts to see how we can format the teams for next year. So as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, we designed the program so we can accommodate those athletes doing a high school sport, as well as those athletes that want to do as much soccer as possibly. And there's a couple of ways we do that in terms of our practice schedule. So we have an open practice policy throughout the club actually, but it really helps us at the high school age group, because if you miss your team practice due to a high school sport, another high school sport practice or game, you can go and do a make-up practice on another night. Or if you like to pick up more practices on top of your own team practice, you're welcome to go to another high school team practice, because we stagger them. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, there's generally multiple high school practices out at Forest Park 8:15 to 9:45, which is largely our high school practice location. And it's late, deliberately late, so those players or those athletes who are playing a high school sport usually go to their high school practice right after their day, right after their school day. They'll have a chance to go home, have some dinner, and then come back out and practice with their own team, with their edge team at 8:15 to 9:45. So communication is important for that to work, not only in terms of the schedule, what practices and games your player might be missing for their high school sport. As long as the communication is there with our edge coach, there's certainly no issue with that, especially if you're trying to make up the practice as another one. But also just in terms of workload, some of the high school sports are very physically demanding, some more than others, particularly, cross country, I'm thinking of track and field. Lacrosse is very physically demanding on the boys' side. So it's important your athlete is communicating with the edge coach about where their energy levels are. They can't come from another sport where they're just physically worn out and expect to be on 100% at an edge practice. So it's important that our edge coaches, for the athlete well-being and to avoid injuries, are communicating workload with our edge coaches as well. In terms of tournaments, we will attend in-state tournaments, probably a lot of the ones you guys have attended in the past, but we also go out of town to college showcase tournaments. We've been all over the country, really, but we took 4 teams to Scottsdale in President's Day weekend. That's generally a very popular weekend to do college showcase out of town tournaments. We had a great experience, and we'll almost certainly continue that. So the chances are, as your player goes into our high school program, if they haven't done so already, they'll be offered to go and get the opportunity to go somewhere nice and warm in the winter months to a college showcase tournament. I know your son or daughters will be currently in 7th or 8th grade, so playing soccer in college is probably quite an abstract idea at the moment, but it's something your player may be interested in, and if so, we try and facilitate that as much as possible. We've sent well over 60 players off to various colleges in the last 12, 13 years. Club intramural is getting much bigger, as well as varsity. I included some of the schools there: D1, D2, D3, NAIA. Our current captain, the U19 captain on the boys' side, Nolan Walters, who's also an OPRF varsity captain, he's just committed to Augustana. On the girls' side, Mally Castle, who's our U19 captain and currently one of the captains on the OPRF varsity team, has a number of options, and she's planning to play possibly at Carthage as well. So it's something we really push our players to do if that's what they would like to do in the future. Now, to facilitate that, it's a very convoluted process, and one that I'm not overly familiar with because I didn't go through it, and the same with Gavin. So we hired Albert Martin, who's also our director of goalkeeping, because his full-time day job is a director of recruitment, to connect high school athletes with college programs. So he has great connections, a great wealth of knowledge into the processes and procedures necessary to make that happen. So there's nothing urgent you need to do right now, given how young your young player is. But as they go into the high school program, a freshman, sophomore, I would definitely recommend reaching out to Albert. His email address is there or on the website, and just connecting with him about what your young player could be doing right now, if that's something they would like to do in the future, is playing soccer in college. So usually at this part of the evening, or when it's a Zoom interactive meeting, is I would answer your questions in real time, but this format being what it is, I just wanted to recap a couple of key points about our program. The aim of the program is to accommodate multi-sport athletes, as well as accommodating those athletes or those soccer players who want to focus exclusively on soccer. And the way we do that is by having the late practices, the open practice policy, our coaches' understanding of multi-sport athletes, and it works because of the clear lines of communication, or hopefully the clear lines of communication between our players and the coaches accommodating very busy schedules of your young player. If we didn't answer your question in the last 15-20 minutes, feel free to email me, murray.finley@chicagoedgesc.com. Again, remember to register for tryouts as soon as you can. This makes my life considerably easier, so I appreciate that. And if you have any questions prior to doing so, please reach out. But thank you very much for listening in for the last 15 minutes, and I look forward to seeing you on the field.